Are you more a fan of figurative paintings like this? Or do you prefer more abstract works like this? I would love to hear from you in the comment section down below where you stand in this discussion. And as beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I won't judge you. A lot of people actually have a hard time appreciating some of the modern abstract art that was developed since the beginning of the 20th century. Or maybe you like some abstract works, but you have a hard time explaining why. In this video, I will provide some insights on how art moved from beautiful figurative works full of details to simplified abstract art consisting of lines, shapes and colors. And we are going to look at the evolution of the artistic ideas of one specific artist, Piet Mondrian. In the beginning of his career, Mondrian created traditional works like this. But by the end of his life, he was painting works like this. What happened to him? When Mondrian was 37 years old, he painted this beautiful red tree against the evening light. Sure, we cannot make out all the details in this painting, and the colors may not be very realistic, but we can all see that he painted a large tree with few leaves. 2 years later, he painted these two works. Without telling you the titles yet, you can probably guess what he painted here. Having just seen his red tree, we will probably all conclude that he painted two trees here. And indeed, one is entitled Grey Tree and the other one Horizontal Tree. He cut out a lot of the details and colors from his initial painting. He simplified the painting. In other words, he made it more abstract. The next year, in 1912, Mondrian took this one step further. This work is entitled Apple Tree in Blossom, and it is helpful to compare it to his grey tree from the year before. He added back some color, but the branches have become even more abstract. If I would have shown you this work in isolation, without telling you the title, many would probably not have guessed that this is a tree, let alone an apple tree in blossom. But within the progression of works by Mondrian, it does make some sense. Here is another example of the more abstract trees by Mondrian, painted in the same year as Apple Tree in Blossom. This work is entitled Landscape with Trees, but you could easily see something else in it. And that is one of the unique aspects of abstract art. It allows us to interpret the work in the way that we want. It has the possibility to appeal in a different way to each of us. So instead of giving his future works a specific title, telling us what he intended to paint, this next work, painted 2 years later in 1914, is mysteriously known as Tableau No. 2, Composition No. 5. Now one person can see an aerial view of the countryside. Someone else may see a brick wall, and another person may see a forest, or maybe you see nothing at all in it. We don't know what Mondrian intended here, and that's exactly the point. If it appeals to you, great. If you don't like it, that's also fine. And remember, it is not that Mondrian suddenly forgot how to paint. 2 years later, he still painted this naturalistic work entitled Farm near Duivendrecht in the evening. So, his move from naturalism to abstraction was very deliberate, and his abstract works were still based on his observations of the world around him. In fact, Mondrian did not consider himself as purely an abstract artist, but as an abstract realist. Anyway, the journey continued for Mondrian. He was not so much concerned with painting a specific view anymore, but more with the visual appeal and balance of shapes, lines and colors. One thing that is often heard when talking about abstract art is that people feel that they can easily create such works themselves. And in a technical sense that is true, but from a creative point, keep in mind that Mondrian was an artist his whole life and that he was constantly searching for ideas to make his art better. So let's see some of the evolution he went through. In 1918 he painted this work, Composition with Grid 1. And 2 years later he created Composition number 11, but also Composition with yellow, red, black, blue and grey. As you can see, he was very actively experimenting with the balance between the colors and shapes. Fast forward 3 years, he came up with this work, something that resembles pretty well the style that he became best known for. And that continued for a decade, where he created compositions like these two works. Pretty simple, just a few squares, a few rectangles and a few colors. A child could make it. And it's actually the reason that Mondrian is quite popular among younger children. But it took Mondrian actually a long time to create each of these works, experimenting with different balances. And even his simplest work have many layers of paint on top of each other. In the last decade of his career, the compositions became somewhat more involved, with more lines and shapes. And instead of giving his works titles like Tableau or Composition number something, he came up with more intriguing titles and works like New York City 1, Trafalgar Square, and Broadway Boogie Woogie. And he ended his career with this work that he could never finish. It's Victory Boogie Woogie in the Kunstmuseum in The Hague. Quite interesting for a man who started his career with works like this. I really hope that this video gave you a better understanding of abstract and modern art and specifically the journey that Piet Mondrian went through. If you ever have the opportunity to see a Mondrian exhibition with works from its different periods, I can highly recommend you to visit. Or if you have ever the possibility to visit the Kunstmuseum in The Hague, the Netherlands, you would not have to wait for a special exhibition, as they have all these types of work in their permanent collection. If you enjoyed this discussion, please hit the thumbs up button, and if you have any thoughts about abstract art or Piet Mondrian, let me know in the comment section below. And finally, consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more of my videos. Thanks for watching.